T.I. didn't just collapse in the courtroom. He collapsed under the crushing weight of a scandal so wild, so perfectly chaotic, that even the best screenwriters in Hollywood couldn't have scripted it. The story doesn't begin with the gavel. It doesn't begin with the judge announcing 5 years. It begins long before that moment. Years of tension, reckless choices, whispers behind closed doors, and an empire that had been built on both triumph and controversy. And then, in one single devastating moment, it all came crashing down. Picture the scene. T.I., the king of the South, sitting in a hushed courtroom, watching his son, King Harris, stand before a judge. The air was thick, heavy with expectation, the silence stretching into something suffocating. And then, just like that, the hammer dropped. 5 years. 5 long, brutal years. The sentence landed like a bomb, reverberating not only through the walls of that courtroom, but across Atlanta, across the hip-hop industry, across the culture. A collective gasp echoed online as the news spread, and suddenly, what should have been just another legal proceeding turned into something much bigger. A spectacle, a cultural moment, and a tragedy that might have been inevitable all along. This wasn't just another high-profile arrest. It wasn't even just a celebrity scandal. This was something deeper. This was what happens when the private struggles of a family, already under the microscope, finally spill into public view. For years, fans have been watching the Harris family, not just as celebrities, but as characters in a real-life soap opera. T.I., the seasoned mogul with a checkered past, King, the outspoken son growing up with fame as his inheritance and rebellion as his calling card. It always seemed like something was brewing, but no one expected it to explode like this. Fans didn't react like it was just news. They reacted like it was betrayal. They took to Twitter, to Instagram, to TikTok, flooding timelines with hashtags and hot takes. Some screamed that the system was once again targeting Black celebrity families, making an example out of them the way it had done to countless others before. Others dismissed it as karma, saying T.I.'s past had finally caught up with him through his son. And in the middle of that firestorm, whispers began to circulate that this wasn't as simple as a reckless young man getting caught up. This wasn't about justice. This was about humiliation, about power, about making sure T.I., the self-proclaimed king of the South, remembered that no one is untouchable. What really struck people wasn't just the 5-year sentence. It was T.I.'s reaction. Witnesses said that when the verdict was read, he literally stumbled, as though his body gave way under the weight of it. He reached for the bench for support, his face pale, his expression vacant, sweat dripping down his temple. This was not the man fans had grown used to, the man who had stared down prosecutors in the past, who had flipped his own scandals into opportunities, who had never once let the camera see him broken. This time, he wasn't just fighting for his reputation. He was watching his own son, his bloodline, his heir, being sentenced in a way that symbolized more than punishment. The collapse wasn't just physical, it was symbolic. The collapse of power, the collapse of control, the collapse of an empire that had been carefully constructed over decades. And when the cameras caught it, when the clip began circulating on social media with captions like, "The Fall of a King," it became an image bigger than the trial itself. It became a metaphor for the fragility of fame and the harsh reality that no dynasty, no matter how powerful, is immune to collapse. But let's rewind. How did we get here? The truth is, this scandal didn't start in the courtroom. It didn't even start with the arrest. It started years before, in the way King Harris lived his life publicly. Young, brash, and addicted to the spotlight, King grew up as a child of the limelight. His entire adolescence played out in front of millions of social media followers. He boasted on Instagram Lives, flaunted designer clothes, flexed expensive jewelry, and acted out late-night antics that made his fans laugh, but made industry insiders quietly shake their heads. To outsiders, it looked like just another celebrity kid acting reckless, but to those who had been watching closely, it was foreshadowing. Every live stream, every braggadocious post, every wild night out was like watching a slow-motion car crash. People knew something was coming, they just didn't know when. And all the while, T.I. was trying to play the role of father and mogul, mentor and disciplinarian. But how do you discipline someone who grew up believing fame was normal, who had never known a world where cameras weren't flashing in his face? King wasn't just another teenager rebelling against authority, he was rebelling against a dynasty. To understand why this moment hit so hard, you have to understand T.I. himself. Clifford Harris, T.I., wasn't just a rapper. He was an empire builder, a man who turned a troubled past into mogul status. The same T.I. who once faced federal gun charges, who endured scandals and beefs that would have ended lesser careers, who had a knack for flipping every downfall into a comeback. He was a survivor. The King of the South wasn't just a title, it was a declaration of resilience. But even T.I. couldn't spin this one. No publicist, no crisis management team could erase the fact that his son wasn't just arrested. He was paraded in front of cameras, cuffed and humiliated in a way that felt almost orchestrated. And that's exactly what insiders began to suggest.
Whispers began to spread that King's arrest wasn't random, that it was a setup, an operation designed not just to bring down a reckless kid, but to strike at T.I. himself. The story goes that an anonymous tip led police directly to King one night during a late ride through Atlanta. And when the arrest happened, cameras were already rolling, conveniently positioned to capture the fall in perfect clarity. Too convenient, almost as if someone had been waiting for that exact moment. Then came the reports, unverified but too juicy to ignore, of leaked documents suggesting that King had been under surveillance for months. Wiretaps, informants, even whispers of a secret task force assigned to monitor his every move. If true, this wasn't just a simple arrest. It was an orchestrated takedown, a stage spectacle meant to humiliate not only King, but T.I. himself, as though to remind the so-called King of the South that no empire lasts forever. When the news broke, the internet reacted in predictable fashion, chaotic, loud, and unforgiving. Hashtags like Free King trended within hours, with fans insisting this was another taste of the system targeting a black celebrity family. Others mocked the Harris dynasty, posting memes that went viral within minutes. One particularly brutal meme showed a photo of King in cuffs with the caption, "King of the South? More like Prison King." Harsh, yes, but in the age of social media, mockery spreads faster than sympathy. And in this era, the court of public opinion often hits harder than the actual justice system. Every repost, every meme, every viral tweet didn't just shape the narrative, it cemented it. By the time the mainstream media caught up, the story had already been judged and sentenced by millions of people scrolling on their phones. But as loud as the public reaction was, the whispers behind the scenes were even louder. This wasn't just about King Harris. They said this was about T.I., about silencing him, about sending a message. And the fallout was immediate. Within hours of the verdict, industry insiders reported that some of T.I.'s business partners began pulling away. Meetings were canceled, endorsement deals postponed. In the entertainment industry, loyalty is fragile, and scandal spreads like poison. If King's case spiraled into more leaks, more dirt, more exposure, then anyone connected to T.I. risked going down with them. Survival instinct took over, and suddenly, T.I. wasn't just fighting for his family's name. He was fighting to hold on to the empire he had spent decades building. And that's when the story took an even darker turn. Rumors began circulating of sealed documents, secret testimonies, unnamed co-defendants, whispers that King's 5-year sentence wasn't the end of the story, but the beginning of something far bigger. Some claimed this was just the opening act of a much larger investigation, one that could pull back the curtain on names and networks far beyond the Harris family. If true, then T.I.'s collapse in that courtroom wasn't just emotional. It was the weight of knowledge that something darker was coming,
something bigger. Something that could turn this from a family tragedy into an industry-wide earthquake. And if there's one thing people have learned from watching T.I. over the years, it's that nothing in his world happens by accident. Every scandal, every downfall, every leak always has another layer waiting to be uncovered. The question is, how deep does this one go? So, here's the ultimate question. Was T.I.'s collapse the end of the Harris dynasty, or was this just the beginning of a scandal that could shake the entire industry to its core? Was this truly about King Harris making reckless choices, or was it about a system, a vendetta, and a message meant to remind everyone that fame is not a shield? The story isn't finished. If the whispers are true, this is only chapter 1 of a saga that could unravel secrets no one expected to see exposed. For now, we're left with an image burned into the culture. T.I., once unshakable, brought to his knees in a courtroom watching the legacy he built crumble in real time. And maybe, just maybe, the real collapse hasn't even happened yet. What do you think? Was King Harris set up, or was this simply the price of reckless choices in the spotlight? Do you believe this was about justice, or about destroying the Harris dynasty once and for all? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.